Grayson Ward stopped in the doorway of Lakeview Memorial Hospital's delivery suite, watching Sienna Brooks arch against a contraction as nurses urged her to push. He met her eyes, terror, fury, a plea, and felt the old cowardice coil tight. A surgeon's voice asked if he was a father. Grayson swallowed. No, he stepped back, palms lifting in surrender, expensive shoes squeaking on polished tile. Sienna cried his name, raw and breaking, but he turned away, fleeing down the bright corridor, past bassinets waiting for first breaths, past hope itself, convincing himself this escape was mercy, not betrayal, for them and him. If a man can walk away from the woman he loves while she brings his child into the world, what else will he lose? This is a true American tragedy about power, fear, and the price of abandonment, set in Chicago, where fortunes rise and families fall. Before we begin, tap subscribe to follow more emotional, twist-filled stories every week. Hit the like button to boost this video so others find it. Share with a friend who loves intense romance dramas. And comment below, would you forgive him or close the door forever? Your voice shapes the next story. Right now, Grayson left the delivery floor with his chest burning, as if the hospital lights had seared through his ribs. The elevator doors mirrored his face back at him. Handsome, hardened, hollow. He told himself the same lie he perfected since childhood. Attachments endanger empires. His board wanted discipline. His investors demanded predictability. And love promised neither. Sienna was chaos he secretly craved and could not afford. So he recast cowardice as prudence, stamped fear strategy, and named betrayal a business decision. Above him, a cry he refused to imagine already had begun. Grayson stared at his reflection and press lobby. Sienna clutched the rails, breath shredding as another contraction tore through her, the ceiling tiles blurring into a white river overhead. Nurses anchored her like small constellations, one counting, one cooling her forehead, one squeezing her hand hard enough to promise she wasn't alone. But loneliness had weight, and it pressed everywhere. The empty space where Grayson's voice should be, the silent chair where hope should sit. She pushed, cried, cursed, prayed, then pushed again. The monitor sang urgent, steady notes. A doctor said they were close. Sienna focused on the doorway he'd fled and delivered into absence and cold air. You're doing beautifully, a nurse murmured, voice low and practiced, the kind that braided calm through panic. Another contraction mounted, brutal and tidal. Sienna bore down and screamed, the sound ripping from someplace deeper than lungs. You can do this, the doctor said. One more, now. She inhaled, counted, pushed, and felt the room change. Pressure, release, a thin new cry sawing open the air. Tears rushed her temples. She wanted to say his name and refused to give it breath. The nurse whispered, "Baby's here." Sienna nodded, jaw set against memory, readying for whatever came next. Pain would not win. Street air crashed against Grayson as sliding doors parted and the city spilled its noise around him. He inhaled winter and glass and gasoline, building a case in his head the way he'd dismantle rivals. If he stayed, leaks would explode across business pages. If he stayed, investors would whisper about weakness. If he stayed, everything he built could tilt. He repeated the argument until it sounded like logic instead of fear. A rideshare idled. He climbed in, fastening his seat belt with certainty, and told the driver to go. Behind them, sirens wailed toward beginnings he refused to witness. Inside, Sienna clutched the blanket and let the nurse lay the baby against her chest for one trembling heartbeat before the world demanded more from her body. We're still working, the doctor said gently. Breathe with me. The monitor ticked a steady warning. Someone adjusted the light. Sienna inhaled salt antiseptic and the fierce newness of life, anchoring herself to the tiny weight warming her skin. She blinked away tears and found strength where love had been. I've got you, she whispered. I've got us. The nurse nodded like a vow, bracing her hand. Another contraction gathered, merciless and necessary. Grayson stared at his phone as the rideshare merged into night, thumbs hovering over Sienna's name. A text box opened, empty and glowing. He imagined writing "I'm sorry." Imagined turning around. Imagined the headlines if he did. The cursor blinked like a metronome, counting down a life he couldn't return to. He closed the app, then powered the phone off, as if darkness could erase witnesses. Chicago's skyline cut silver teeth against the clouds. He told himself he would send flowers, would send support, would send anything except himself. The lie hardened, smooth as stone, in his expensive mouth. Tonight, the next morning found Grayson awake on his office sofa, suit rumpled, mind raw. When he powered his phone, missed calls stacked like accusations. Hospital, unknown numbers, a message from Sienna's sister, then a terse note from his assistant. Heard, she delivered. Are you okay? The word delivered snagged. He searched Lakeview Memorial's announcements and saw a social post from a nurse he recognized, hands linked, pink cap, captioned, Strong mama, healthy baby. Relief knifed him, thin and undeserved. He read the line again and again, pretending the plural he feared wasn't hiding behind the careful, singular word. He clung to that lie. Before noon, the truth found him. A photo arrived from an unfamiliar number. Sienna asleep, hair damp, 2 bundled newborns tucked against her like miracles. No caption, no accusation, just proof. Grayson's hands shook. The conference room beyond his office waited for him to decide a merger. Shareholders waited to be reassured. He stared at the image until it blurred. 2. The word thundered through him, collapsing the scaffolding of justifications he'd built overnight. He typed, deleted. Finally he wrote, I can help. Please. He didn't press send. He simply watched the twins breathe, small engines reordering him, guilt unspooled like wire through his chest, catching on everything he'd ever called strength. He imagined walking back into that hospital with declarations and vows. Imagined cameras. Imagined Sienna's eyes closing like a door. He ordered a courier to deliver flowers, so large they looked like apologies built from petals. He added a handwritten note, for your courage. He couldn't bring himself to write forgive me. When the courier asked where to leave them, he dictated exact instructions, pretending precision could substitute for presence. He waited for a reply that didn't come. The silence felt deserved and impossibly heavy. To him, Sienna traced a perfect crescent of each tiny ear and breathed their milk-sweet scent until the room seemed to float. She named them softly, names she practiced alone in the dark when sleep would not hold. A nurse snapped a picture for her, then another, then whispered, You did this. Sienna smiled, exhausted and fierce. She thought of Grayson's back turning, of doors closing, of winter survived without his warmth. She kissed 2 brand new foreheads and made a promise out loud. You will never need a man who can't stay. Chicago's snow freckled the window. Inside, 3 hearts steadied together. Grayson poured bourbon into a crystal glass, ignoring the morning sun warming his penthouse windows. His eyes closed, unbidden memory rising. Sienna at a charity gala, gown simple yet radiant, laughing as she spilled sparkling water across his cuff. He'd offered his jacket. She'd offered a smile that dismantled the fences money had built. They had danced under borrowed lights, her hand steady against his shoulder. That night had been the start of something he thought temporary. Now, the memory returned sharp as glass, reminding him love had been real, and he had reduced it to collateral damage and cowardice. He remembered their first late-night walk along Lake Michigan, when she talked about becoming a nurse because she wanted to fight for children who couldn't. Her words had left him stunned. He'd spent years fighting for profit margins, never for people. He had kissed her under street lamps and thought maybe he could learn. But lessons abandoned become curses. He drained the glass, pressing temples, wishing he could fold time like paper. The memory didn't ask for forgiveness. It demanded truth. He had loved her, fiercely. He had abandoned her, deliberately. Both were facts carved into him, immovable and merciless. 3 weeks later, Grayson stood outside Sienna's modest apartment on the south side, suit tailored sharp against the weather. He carried flowers in a sleek gift bag, filled with things money said children needed, but love usually chose better. His chest hammered as the door opened. Sienna's hair was tied back, dark circles painting her exhaustion. She froze at the sight of him, then fury flared hotter than any labor pain. You, she whispered, disbelief staining every syllable. He began, Sienna, please, but the doorframe vibrated as she gripped it, deciding whether to scream or strike. Rage made her steady. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. Arms crossed as a wail echoed from deeper inside. Grayson held out the flowers like a shield. "I need to explain," he said, voice catching. She shook her head, incredulous. "Explain leaving me alone in a hospital bed? Explain disappearing when I needed you?" He swallowed, guilt and pride battling. "I was afraid," he admitted. "I thought I'd ruin everything." She laughed bitterly. "You already did." He stepped closer, but her glare froze him. "You don't belong here. Not anymore." She pivoted, rocking gently as the infant's cry pulled her attention inward again. Grayson tried again, words tumbling clumsy. "I want to help. I can provide." Her hand shot up. "Stop. If you say money, I swear." She shut her eyes, shaking. "You think diapers and diamonds erase absence? You weren't there when they first breathed. You weren't there when I thought I might not make it. You weren't there, Grayson." The names twisted inside him. They, plural, each syllable knifed. He whispered, "I'm sorry." She opened the door wider, only to slam it with a finality that rattled his bones. Flowers fell to the floor. Silence became the loudest punishment. The hallway's fluorescent lights hummed while Grayson stood motionless, the slammed door echoing like a gavel. He crouched to gather the flowers, petals bruised by concrete. Behind the door, Sienna's voice softened, cooing to a baby he couldn't see. The sound was worse than fury. It was proof she'd replace him with tenderness that cost nothing. He left the bouquet at her doorstep, a poor monument to mistakes. Walking back to his car, he rehearsed apologies that tasted hollow. Chicago traffic swallowed him, horns blaring, lights pulsing. He realized her anger was earned, and his excuses carried no currency anymore. That night, bourbon untouched, he sat at his desk surrounded by contracts and numbers that suddenly looked meaningless. He thought about Sienna's glare, the way she shielded the babies with her body as if he were danger incarnate. The rejection was absolute, not negotiable. He opened financial statements, trying to convince himself control still belonged somewhere. But every zero blurred into images of bassinets, tiny fists, eyes that might mirror his own. Business had once been refuge, now it mocked him. He closed a laptop and pressed palms to eyes. He had built empires, yet could not touch forgiveness. Memory ambushed him again, Sienna's voice trembling months earlier when she said, "I'm pregnant." They'd been in his office, city lights flooding behind them. He had stared, then laughed, not with joy but panic. He had said the cruelest thing he could think of, "That isn't part of my plan." He'd watched color drain from her face, as if he'd erased her worth. That night, he convinced himself cutting ties quickly was better. But remembering now, he saw cowardice, not strategy. He pressed his forehead to the desk, whispering apologies into empty air. The echo gave him no answer, only ache. 1 month later, Grayson sat in his car across from Sienna's building, engine idling low, eyes locked on her window. He knew this was pathetic beneath him, yet he couldn't stay away. When morning came, he followed her discreetly as she loaded the twins into a stroller and walked toward a nearby pediatric clinic. Her exhaustion showed in every step, yet so did her strength. Nurses outside greeted her warmly. The community she built replacing the man she'd lost. Grayson watched from shadows, shame suffocating. He realized then she wasn't waiting for him. She had already begun without him. Weeks passed before he saw them again, this time at a small neighborhood daycare where Sienna finally enrolled the twins so she could return part-time to work. Grayson remained in his car, hands gripping the wheel, watching her carry both babies with practiced strength. Teachers rushed to help, smiling warmly at her. She kissed each forehead before leaving, her confidence radiating. Grayson's chest tightened. His presence was invisible, unnecessary. When she walked back toward her car, she noticed his. Their eyes met briefly, hers filled with fire. She mouthed one word, "Leave." He obeyed, because courage always failed him when needed most. Grayson's patience with distance snapped after that encounter. Sitting in his penthouse, staring at the skyline that once signified triumph, he told himself fatherhood couldn't be denied by one woman's anger. He could buy rights, if not love. His attorneys reminded him that bloodline mattered, that Illinois courts value paternal claims. He nodded, half convinced, half drowning. In truth, he wanted forgiveness disguised as custody. He wanted proximity to the twins as proof he wasn't the villain she said. So he gave an order, filed paperwork, draft petitions, unleashed the law. It was war now, and he had the sharper weapons. Sienna's world shifted when the legal summons arrived. She stood in her kitchen, twins babbling in high chairs, papers trembling in her hand. Fury surged, not fear. "He abandons us, then demands rights," she muttered. Her sister, Rachel, scooped up one baby and hissed, "He thinks money makes him a father." Sienna shook her head, lips tight. No judge can erase what he did. But dread threaded beneath her anger. Courtrooms favored men with power. She kissed each tiny forehead and promised softly, "I'll fight for you." The babies clapped at her voice. Unaware war drums now beat outside their nursery. Grayson met with his legal team in a boardroom gleaming with marble and screens. His lead attorney, Marcus Vaughn, outlined strategy, emphasized reformation, highlight resources, paint abandonment as misunderstanding. Grayson sat rigid, rehearsing contrition like an investor pitch. Yet doubt crawled. He pictured Sienna's face on the witness stand, eyes like razors, voice unforgiving. "Stay composed," Marcus warned. Judges dislike theatrics. Show sincerity. Grayson practiced a line he hoped would save him. "I was afraid, but I've changed." Even rehearsed, it sounded counterfeit. He closed his eyes. If lies built empires, could one honest truth salvage a ruined family? At night, Sienna met with Margaret Ellis, a legal aid attorney known for slicing arrogance with calm questions. Her office was small, shelves heavy with files, but her voice steadied Sienna's heartbeat. "He has resources," Margaret said, "but you have truth." Sienna nodded. "He left me in that hospital. He needs to say it out loud." Margaret leaned forward. "Then we make him." Relief mingled with fear. Court wasn't about justice. It was about endurance. Sienna tightened her grip on her bag strap. "I'll endure." She looked at her sleeping twins in the stroller. "For them, I'll fight everything." Court filings leaked quickly, headlines sharpened like knives. Billionaire ward faces custody battle. Paparazzi clustered outside his office, hungry for scandal. Grayson walked past cameras, jaw firm, insisting silence. Inside, his board raised eyebrows. Investors whispered about weakness. He assured them everything was under control, though his voice thinned with fatigue. Privately, he replayed Sienna's accusations, each one truer than his press statements. His empire remained polished, yet hollow. He thought of the twins' eyes, still unseen up close. Were they blue like his or brown like hers? He realized wealth couldn't answer. Only presence could, and he lacked it. The hearing begins. The courthouse smelled of varnish and old arguments. Families lined the benches, each carrying stories folded into paper folders. Grayson entered flanked by lawyers, tailored suit immaculate, expression studied. Sienna arrived quietly, Rachel at her side. Twins left safely with a neighbor. She wore no designer armor, just determination. The bailiff called order. Grayson's pulse quickened. The judge, Deborah Lawson, settled into her seat, eyes sharp with practiced weariness. "We'll hear arguments," she said. Grayson clasped his hands, rehearsed lines battling guilt. Across the room, Sienna's gaze burned steady. The truth waited to rise, and he felt unprepared already. Marcus presented first, polished and precise. "My client acknowledges past mistakes, but he seeks involvement out of love, not ego. He has resources to provide security, education, and a nurturing environment." Grayson nodded solemnly on cue. Reporters scribbled. The judge's brow furrowed faintly, unimpressed by wealth. Then Margaret stood, her calm slicing clean. "Love shows up," she said. "It doesn't vanish in delivery rooms." Murmurs rippled. She held up medical records, nurses' affidavits, and testimony waiting to be read. Ms. Brooks endured alone because Mr. Ward chose absence. That choice is fact, not rumor. Grayson shifted, throat tightening. His empire trembled. The judge turned toward Grayson. "Mr. Ward, you'll testify now." He stood, the room pressing close. "Why weren't you present?" Lawson asked. He inhaled. "I was afraid," he admitted, words rawer than rehearsed. I thought my presence would cause damage. I panicked." The courtroom stirred. Sienna's laugh sliced the silence, bitter and brief. "You didn't panic," she said. "You abandoned." Grayson's shoulder sagged. "I regret it every day." The judge raised a hand. Order. But the truth hung heavier than gavel strikes. Fear explained little. Choice explained everything. Grayson finally looked like what he was. Coward, not protector. Margaret presented evidence. Call logs of unanswered numbers. Letters returned unopened. A nurse's written account of Sienna asking if the father would arrive and receiving silence. Each page thudded against Grayson like stone. He lowered his gaze. Cameras clicked. The judge read carefully, face grim. "This is serious," Lawson said. Grayson tried to interject, but Marcus squeezed his arm. The strategy was simple. Survive, absorb, appear remorseful. But remorse felt like drowning. He replayed Sienna's scream in that hospital corridor, the syllables of his name he'd ignored. Every detail emerged in sworn testimony, cementing cowardice into permanent record. When testimony ended, silence reigned heavy as marble. The judge removed her glasses. "This court recognizes parental rights, but cannot ignore abandonment. Mr. Ward, supervised visitation will be granted. No overnight custody. No unsupervised contact until trust is proven." Grayson nodded stiffly, pretending gratitude. Inside, despair clawed. Supervised meant stranger, meant visitor, meant outsider. Cameras clicked again. Reporters bolted for exits. Sienna exhaled, relief mingling with exhaustion. Margaret squeezed her hand. Grayson glanced once more at Sienna, hoping for a flicker of mercy. Instead, he saw finality. Judgment wasn't confined to law. It already lived in her unyielding eyes. Reporters swarmed the courthouse steps, microphones lunging toward Grayson as though hunger had formed. "Do you regret abandoning them?" one shouted. "What kind of father are you?" another pressed. He ignored them, jaw locked, descending into the back seat of his black sedan. Inside, silence suffocated louder than any question. Marcus muttered strategy about public relations, but Grayson barely heard. His mind remained in the courtroom, replaying Sienna's laughter, the sound colder than verdicts, sharper than headlines. He had money, influence, reputation. None had mattered when truth cracked open. He realized judgment didn't end with gavel strikes. It had only begun. Sienna stood outside with Rachel, breathing crisp air, clutching the ruling like a lifeline. "Supervised is enough," she whispered. Rachel nodded, adjusting the diaper bag slung across her shoulder. "He'll never know what it means to be dad." Relief mingled with grief. Victory was survival, not joy. She imagined telling her children one day, imagined choosing careful words. The court recognized biology, but not fatherhood. She kissed each baby's soft crown, inhaling the scent of innocence untouched by law. "We're okay," she murmured. Across the street, Grayson's car sped away, tinted windows closing like the future he no longer owned. Days blurred into weeks, and then came the scheduled visitation. Grayson arrived at the family center, walls painted with murals of trees and balloons that mocked his hollow chest. A social worker greeted him warmly, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Ward, the children will be brought shortly. Please wait inside." He nodded, pacing across carpet squares, color for comfort. He rehearsed words. "Hello, I'm your father," but they tasted foreign, fragile. A door opened, and Sienna entered carrying the twins, one on each hip. Their eyes widened, lips pursed, cries ready. Grayson froze. He wasn't dad here. He was an interruption, an intruder. The babies whimpered immediately, sensing tension vibrating between adults. Sienna rocked them, whispering comfort only they recognized. Grayson extended trembling arms. "May I?" The social worker nodded, encouraging. Sienna hesitated, then reluctantly allowed one baby into his arms. The infant squirmed, face crumpling, wails erupting. Grayson's chest hollowed. He whispered, "Sure, it's okay." But the child cried harder, reaching desperately toward Sienna. His heart splintered. Sienna took the baby back, soothing instantly. "See," she said softly but sharp. "They don't know you." Grayson's vision blurred. He realized love unshown leaves no imprint. He wasn't father. He was furniture. Replaceable. Unnecessary. The second twin reached arms toward Sienna as Grayson tried again. His expensive watch caught light, dazzling briefly, but the child shrank from unfamiliar scent and touch. Tears streaked Grayson's cheeks, unnoticed. The social worker cleared her throat, documenting observations discreetly. "It takes time," she offered gently. Sienna scoffed, eyes unwavering. "Time doesn't heal abandonment." She rocked both children, humming a lullaby. Grayson sat back, defeated, hands empty, heart cavernous. The mural behind him depicted cartoon families, smiling beneath a bright sun. He envied paint and plaster. They knew connection he never would. His wealth couldn't redraw pictures already complete. After the visit, Grayson exited into gray drizzle, rain plastering hair across his forehead. Marcus called with updates on media spin, but he hung up. None of it mattered. He pressed palms against his car roof, inhaling air like shards. Across the lot, Sienna buckled the twins into their car seats, movements efficient, maternal, permanent. She glanced once, eyes colder than storms, then drove away without hesitation. Grayson remained rooted, watching taillights vanish. Regret gnawed like a parasite. Supervised visitation was victory only by legal definition. Emotionally, it was execution. He had entered their world and been declared unwanted. Back at his penthouse, Grayson found silence unbearable. He paced, rooms echoing emptiness louder than applause ever had. He tried distracting with contracts, meetings, acquisitions. Numbers lost meaning. He canceled dinners, ignored calls, and drank water instead of whiskey, hoping clarity would return. But each night ended the same, staring at the courthouse decree pinned above his desk. Supervised visitation only. The words mocked him. He imagined birthdays missed, milestones unseen, voices learning to speak without him. He pressed forehead to glass, city lights sprawling below. Chicago glittered like wealth, but none of it warmed the hollow inside him. On his second visit, he came bearing toys, carefully chosen by assistants after research into developmental psychology. Blocks, plush animals, interactive books, all arranged neatly. The twins glanced once, uninterested, reaching only for Sienna. She sat across the room, arms folded, eyes sharp. "They need consistency, not extravagance," she said. Grayson flushed. "I'm trying." "You should have tried then," she answered simply. Silence thickened. A toy fell to the carpet, untouched. Grayson realized gifts were just more substitutes for presents. He had thought he could buy bridges, but trust wasn't for sale. It was earned in hours he had thrown away. Later, Grayson left the center with toys still in their packaging, humiliation heavy. Outside, reporters shouted again, cameras flashing. "How was visitation? Do your children know you?" He pushed through without reply, but words pierced. In his car, he replayed the social worker's notes, neutral, factual, condemning by omission. Children displayed attachment to mother, limited response to father. He pounded the steering wheel once, breath ragged. His empire applauded precision, yet here he was clumsy, foreign, irrelevant. He realized regret wasn't just emotional. It was visible, documented, archived. Paper trails would forever testify he had been absent when needed most. Sienna walked home afterward, twins bundled against her chest, exhaling relief that the visit ended quickly. Rachel met her halfway, groceries in hand. "How was it?" she asked carefully. Sienna shook her head. They cried the moment he touched them. Rachel frowned. "And him?" He looked broken. A pause lingered. But broken doesn't erase abandonment. They walked together, the twins cooing softly, safe. For Sienna, each step reaffirmed her vow. Grayson would never shape their lives. Not through toys, not through law, not through wealth. He had chosen absence. She had chosen survival. Only one choice built futures worth keeping. Grayson sat in his office one night, the city skyline burning gold against twilight. Paperwork lay forgotten. Instead, his mind returned to the night he almost proposed. They had been in a jazz club. Sienna's laughter bright against saxophones and candlelight. The ring had waited in his pocket, but fear had weighed heavier. He told himself tomorrow, then tomorrow again, until tomorrow disappeared. Now he replayed that night endlessly, imagining her yes, imagining their family whole. Regret sharpened into torture. Love had once been within reach, but cowardice had made permanence impossible. He whispered, "I should have asked then." He walked through his penthouse, pausing at the closet where the velvet box still hid, unopened, dusty. He opened it now, the diamond catching city light like a wound. He imagined sliding it onto Sienna's hand, imagined children climbing across their laps. Instead, reality sliced. She cradled their twins alone, guarding them from him. He snapped the box shut, chest constricting. He realized wealth preserved objects, but not love. A proposal delayed had become a family destroyed. He left the box on his desk like evidence, unable to bury it again. Tomorrow was gone forever. He had murdered it himself. Months later, months passed, each visitation no easier than the first. Grayson grew thinner, eyes shadowed. He tried therapy, pouring confessions into sessions lined with sterile couches. The therapist said, accountability heals. But healing required forgiveness. Sienna refused. Nights blurred into whiskey-free vigils at the glass windows, watching fathers in park below push strollers, lift children onto shoulders. Each laugh pierced him, a reminder of what he'd forfeited. His empire thrived, profits surged, but joy collapsed. He told himself success was hollow without them, but he had chosen hollow once. Now hollow was permanent, carved into the architecture of his life. He tried philanthropy, funding pediatric wings, schools, charities, hoping headlines might impress Sienna. Instead, she dismissed each gesture as spectacle. "You can't purchase presents," she told him flatly after one supervised visit. Her words landed like verdicts. He saw her smile at the twins, warm and natural, then glance at him like a shadow. Every dollar he spent reminded him money was powerless here. He had chased empires and lost family. His name appeared in newspapers under philanthropy columns, praised by strangers. Yet the only headline he longed for, "Dad," remained unwritten. And he knew it always would remain unwritten. At a coffee shop one afternoon, Grayson sat alone near the window, watching parents guide toddlers across crosswalks. He envied their ordinariness, the mess, the routine, the unremarkable devotion. A barista asked if he wanted another refill, jolting him back. "No, thank you," he said, voice hoarse. He realized envy had replaced pride. Once, he looked down at ordinary lives from skyscraper heights. Now he longed for them. He had traded lullabies for stock options, bedtime stories for boardrooms. Each exchange had felt necessary then. Now, every trade felt criminal. He had stolen from himself, and punishment was eternal loneliness. Meanwhile, Sienna blossomed into motherhood with grace. She returned part-time to nursing, balancing shifts and babies with Rachel's help. Neighbors admired her strength, often offering meals or babysitting. At church, congregants called her resilient, and she smiled quietly. She rarely mentioned Grayson. When she did, her words were steel. "He abandoned us," she said. "That doesn't change." The twins grew, their laughter ringing through the apartment, small hands clutching picture books. Sienna captured each milestone with photos, proof of survival. She whispered often, "We don't need him." She believed it. The twins believed it. Only Grayson refused to accept it. Grayson stared at old photographs one night. Sienna smiling at a beach outing years ago, hair tangled by wind, eyes soft. He traced her face with trembling fingers, whispering, "I ruined us." He slammed the frame down, glass cracking. Memories once sweet now punished him, looping endlessly. He couldn't undo, couldn't erase. Even his lawyers admitted his chances of unsupervised visitation dwindled. He realized he might never tuck them into bed, never hear them call him father. He gripped the frame again, blood from a small cut staining the photo. He thought, this is what regret tastes like, iron and permanence. The final confrontation came unexpectedly, outside the visitation center, on a chilly afternoon. Sienna adjusted car seats while the twins giggled in the back. Grayson approached cautiously, heart hammering. "Sienna, please," he said, voice cracking. She turned, arms folding. "What do you want?" "A chance," he whispered. "I love them. I love you." Her laughter was bitter. "Love doesn't abandon. You left me in labor, Grayson. You left them before they breathed." He staggered under her words. "I've changed." She shook her head. "Change doesn't erase memory." Her eyes hardened. "You're not their father. You're just a stranger visiting." He dropped to his knees on the pavement, ignoring the chill seeping through tailored trousers. Passers-by slowed, curious, but he didn't care. "Please," he begged, tears slipping freely. "Let me in. Let me try." Sienna's expression softened for a fraction, then steeled again. "I carried them alone. I bled alone. I raised them alone. You don't get to share the triumph after dodging the trial." Her words struck deeper than courts ever could. He covered his face. Sobbing, Sienna gathered the twins into her arms, their laughter cushioning her heart. For her, this was closure. For him, it was execution. The twins pressed cheeks against Sienna's shoulders, secure in warmth that had never abandoned them. Grayson stayed crouched, broken, watching the family he'd forfeited walk away. Tires crunched, doors closed, and Sienna's car pulled from the lot, red taillights vanishing like a final heartbeat. The social worker glanced at him from a distance. Sympathy mingled with judgment. He remained kneeling long after cold bit his skin. Inside, his empire still roared, but his world was silent. Regret had no remedy. Sienna's final words clanged like iron bars. "Stranger." He whispered them to himself, accepting exile from the only home he wanted. Grayson lingered outside the visitation center on a gray afternoon, suit damp from misting rain. Inside, the twins played in a supervised room filled with soft mats and toys. He entered cautiously, greeted by the social worker's neutral smile. Sienna sat nearby, gaze firm. Grayson lowered himself onto the floor, trying again, offering blocks. The children glanced, then turned away, reaching for their mother instead. The rejection stung worse than any headline, worse than court verdicts. He forced a smile, pretending patience. Inside, truth roared. Fatherhood wasn't earned in petitions, but in presence. And his presence had come too late. One twin toddled toward him briefly, curiosity sparking. Grayson's breath caught. He extended hands, trembling, whispering, "Come here." But the child faltered, glancing back at Sienna, then scurried into her arms. Relief softened Sienna's face for her child, not for him. Grayson's chest collapsed inward. He realized even chance moments were fragile, fleeting, and gone before he could grasp them. The social worker scribbled notes, documenting detachment clinically. Grayson's eyes burned. He whispered, "I missed everything." No one answered. Silence grew heavy again. The child's laughter returned. Safe with Sienna, proof Grayson wasn't needed. Hope slipped away, leaving only sharpened regret. After the session, Sienna rose, gathering toys with efficient calm. Grayson reached out desperately. "Please, give me a chance outside supervision. I can prove." She cut him off. "You had your chance the night I needed you most. You proved who you are." The words landed final, heavier than gavels. She strapped the twins securely into their stroller, their tiny hands clapping rhythmically, oblivious. Grayson froze, knowing her dismissal wasn't anger. It was truth. She had closed the door forever. Supervision wasn't a bridge. It was a wall, and on the other side stood a stranger dressed in tailored suits. He followed them outside, rain misting again. The parking lot gleamed slick under fading daylight. "Sienna," he begged, voice hoarse, "I love them. I love you." She turned, eyes like stone. Love doesn't abandon. Love doesn't walk away in delivery rooms. His knees weakened. "I regret it every day." She shook her head. Regret doesn't raise children. Regret doesn't tuck them in. The twins stirred, yawning against her shoulders. She softened her tone, but not her stance. "You'll never be part of our lives, Grayson. The court may allow visits, but to us, you don't exist." He broke silently. Grayson collapsed against his car, watching Sienna secure the twins into hers. Their car seats clicked. Their laughter floated like music he could never join. Sienna kissed each forehead, whispering comfort he couldn't hear. She looked at Grayson once more, not with fury, but with absence. He was invisible now, unnecessary. Tires rolled, taillights flashing red against wet pavement, receding into distance. He wanted to run, to chase, but his legs betrayed him. He realized then, punishment wasn't court decrees or angry words. Punishment was watching life continue without him. Punishment was permanence. Punishment was exile from his own blood. The social worker approached gently. "Mr. Ward, visitation will continue as ordered," she reminded. He nodded numbly, words caught in his throat. He realized legal rights were meaningless when emotional rights had been revoked. Paper allowed presence. Love denied it. He sank into the car seat, hands gripping the wheel until knuckles whitened. He whispered, "I lost them." For once, no assistant, no lawyer, no deal could contradict him. The truth was immovable. Wealth had built towers, but cowardice had toppled home. He started the engine, driving nowhere in particular, chasing a past permanently sealed, a family forever unreachable. In his penthouse later that night, city lights glared unforgivingly. Grayson wandered room to room, silence echoing louder than applause once had. He found the velvet ring box still lying on his desk. He opened again, diamond catching harsh glow. "Too late," he whispered. He hurled it across the room. It struck the glass wall, landing on polished floor like discarded truth. He pressed palms against the cold pane, staring down at bustling streets. People lived, loved, forgave, moved forward. He remained trapped in rewind. Tomorrow offered nothing. Only yesterday lived here, replaying endlessly, unchanging, unforgiven, unrelenting. Sienna, meanwhile, returned home, twins drifting into sleep. Rachel helped settle them into cribs, humming softly. "He looked destroyed," Rachel whispered. Sienna tucked blankets tighter. "He chose destruction the day he left." Her voice trembled but stayed firm. She sat beside the cribs, stroking soft hair. "You'll never know abandonment. You'll only know presence." The twins stirred, sighing peacefully. Rachel squeezed her hand. "You did the right thing." Sienna nodded, tears slipping silently. Strength wasn't refusing to cry. It was refusing to yield. She kissed her children once more and whispered, "We are whole. Without him, we are still whole." Weeks turned into months. Grayson attended visits, but nothing changed. The twins cried at his touch, clung only to Sienna. His empire continued thriving, but every headline about him felt like mockery. Investors praised his discipline. Employees admired his resilience. But mirrors revealed hollowness. He saw strangers' eyes staring back. His own children recognized only absence. The social worker's report stayed consistent. No attachment formed. Grayson began dreading visits instead of anticipating them. Each one was a mirror, reflecting cowardice he couldn't escape. He had lost not just family, but the man he might have been. Forever unrecoverable, forever gone. On a quiet evening, Grayson stood outside the visitation center again, watching through glass as Sienna lifted both twins, their laughter ringing. They clutched her necklace, eyes bright, hearts whole. He stepped closer, then stopped. He realized he didn't belong inside. Not anymore. He turned, walking away into rain-soaked streets. Narrator. He had everything, a billion-dollar empire, power, fame, but lost the only thing that mattered. Love isn't abandoned and reclaimed. Love, once betrayed, doesn't return. Final image. Grayson alone under Chicago lights, a shadow against fortune. Forever a stranger to his own children. Forever punished by the weight of regret.